it's not the first football Friday because, of course, college football started, in earnest last weekend and really 2 weeks ago. And, of course, we've had preseason football, but this is the real one, the real deal. Here we are. It is opening week for the NFL. Of course, we watched the first game of the year where the Eagles and the Cowboys started off with basically a loogie and an hour-long rain delay, so nowhere to go but up from there. But Sean Drotar, Nate Lundy with you from the New Mile Sports Studios at number 38, presented by our friends at Volo. And Nate, we are ready for some Denver Broncos football. They get an opponent that probably could not be better for them in the Tennessee Titans, and they get them at home.
Well, you get them at home, but you've also still got 47 hours to wait. I mean, I want to be straight up. You still got a little while to wait. Like, I know that this is like our last show of the week, but we still got to wait a little while. And that's not very fun.
Well,
that sucks.
There's other NFL games. We'll talk about the Chiefs and Chargers little later. There's college games this weekend.
Although this weekend's college games suck. I got to be honest with you. Other than Michigan and OU, compared to last weekend, this weekend's college schedule's terrible.
Yeah, a lot of the top teams did the Oregon Montana State thing this week. So a lot of it's down.
You know, the fighting Joe Flacco's will be up in Boulder.
Delaware Blue Hens ready to take on the Buffalo.
So this is kind of weird. Like obviously, I'm happy that there's an NFL game tonight because that's going to satisfy.
Especially one that matters to Broncos fans.
Yep. But then other than that, I mean, again, I'm looking at the clock right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 46 hours and 58 minutes away still. And that's a long time, Sean.
Well, it's why we get a chance to talk about it. We'll have a chance to talk about it with Troy Renck from the Denver Post as well. They'll break down the game, give us the latest on the injuries. And on top of that, it's not just college football or pro football. It's high school football.
Yeah.
And Dan Mohrmann of Colorado Preps will join us to break down all of those as well, talking about some of the cool Colorado high school football traditions that you might not know about. Looking forward to breaking those down with Dan as well. But let's start with Bo Nix. Because so much of what the Broncos are doing, we've talked about the signings this week when Nik Bonitto got his new deal. So many of these are enabled by the fact that Bo Nix is on his rookie deal, and the Broncos know they have their guy. They are going with Bo Nix. They feel comfortable. He's the quarterback. They should. He finished second in history among touchdown passes among rookies, just behind Justin Herbert by a couple with his 29 last year, put up great numbers for a Broncos team that didn't have a particularly deep offense, something that they tried to address a little bit with Evan Ingram and then overhauling the running back room with RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. But it is much of the improvement has to come from Nix. And we've talked about how maybe the stats don't get a lot better, but the way that things come together can be. And part of that is in the way Nix plays. So any player in their second year, of course, is going to have to make a leap forward if you're planning on being a star, if you're planning on being one of those $50+ million paid quarterbacks. And Bo Nix is a grinder who loves the game. So there's a lot to like about that. But he's not a finished product, Nate. And a lot of the things that we can look at, some of it had to do with the roster last year, but some of it also has to do with him. The game still has to slow down a little bit. And what Bo Nix can help with the Broncos now is being a little more decisive, especially under pressure. Maybe new targets like Evan Ingram will help because he has more options available. Well,
I think that's going to help. But one of the stats that has always stood out that we kind of have an issue with him coming out of 2024 is his air yards. There's, you could essentially make a check down Charlie type of comment about him. Yes, he had some deep ball throws, and he actually ranked pretty highly in the NFL and quarterbacks in terms of pass attempts over 20 yards. However, when you look at, for example, his yards per attempt, he was 30th. If you look at his air yards per attempt, he was 19th. And just on the surface, without actually diving into the all 22 from every game and all of that. But when you see a number like that, that tells you progression, short pass. Right. And so I think when you talk about the idea, Sean, of the game slowing down for him, I think part of what that is we need a little bit of the Keanu Reeves in the Matrix. We need him to see the play developing so that he can take those opportunities that are more than just 6 yards in front of him.
Right.
So that he can be looking at, and I don't even need, I'm not talking about, screw it, Tyreek's down there somewhere. Like, that's not the kind of play I'm talking about. Although obviously he had that last year with the very memorable touchdown to Marvin Mims. But what I'm talking about is the ability to consistently have some pass attempts that are in the teens. May not always complete them, okay? But you need those yards where you are throwing them past the markers, even on first down. 2nd and 6, whatever, your attempt is down past the markers. And when you look at some of his numbers, and the numbers that I'm giving you off a Player Profiler, I've told you guys, one of my favorite sites. When you see his rankings like that, where I want to see the game slow down for him, Sean, is his confidence in making those intermediate and longer throws.
Yeah, and that's something
Like,
that would come with
fine.
time, right?
Check down shows that you're smart.
And you're still moving the ball. Yeah, you're better off, checking down and getting some yards than pushing it into a dangerous situation. But one of the things for a lot of rookies, and Bo Nix is an advanced rookie. He was an older than average rookie, a lot more experienced. No quarterbacks ever started more college games before heading to the pros. But for all quarterbacks, part of the process is at first, and he is going through the progressions, as you pointed out. But it's also seeing, like you explained a little bit, some of the code, because quarterbacks generally, when they start, this guy is not open. I'm going on my next progression. He's not open. Now I'm going to check it down. But as you advance, as you get more used to the game, you start seeing a little bit more. And so you start realizing, okay, Cortland Sutton, for example, on this route, we know is not open at the moment, but in a second, he will be, because I can see the defense now. I can see where they're moving. I know where Cortland's gonna pivot, and you basically start throwing the guy open. Younger quarterbacks, rightly so, don't have that confidence yet, because you try that early and cornerbacks will jump it like they did for the first couple games of the year last year for Nix. And so you start looking for guys that are open. The next step is to actually realize he's about to be open. And by the time the ball gets to where it's supposed to be, he will be. And that's how you drive it further down the field.
Well, and you do it again. I'm coming back to Player Profiler here with you guys for just a second. Let me give it, because they do some really in-depth stats that I love. It's really good, by the way, for you fantasy players to pay attention to. Sean, last year, he ranked 39th in the league in his throw percentage on the first read. He only threw the pass.
Double checking, still only 32 teams in the NFL.
Yeah. 39th
okay. That's not
amongst quarterbacks. His first read throw percentage was 43.9%. So less than half the time, less than 44% of the time, is he actually going to his first read. Now, again, I come back to what I said. That shows intelligence.
And he didn't have a lot of weapons last year, let's face it.
Correct.
So, I mean, you look at Cortland Sutton as the first read. Other teams knew that.
It still shows you that there's some progression things to be learned here by Bo. All right?
Yes.
And so that, to me, is a problem. The big one for me, he was number 3 in the league in the number of interceptable passes that he threw. He threw 22 passes that, according to statistics, would tell you they were interceptable.
Okay.
So maybe the defender didn't make a good enough play, whatever, but 22 times he threw a pass that could have and possibly should have been intercepted. And that was number 3 in the league.
And only a handful more. We're looking at his rookie season very differently.
Yes.
So one of the things that supports that, we have a chart that our producer Danny Bailey will put. We have a chart.
I love charts.
It's a bit of a complicated chart. I'll explain it. It's not really as complicated as you make it out to be. So there's Bo Nix. Danny put the arrow in. You want to be in the upper right of this chart. You don't want to be in the lower left of this chart. Bo Nix is in the lower left, but not by a lot. The idea is, as it goes,
is this that like the crazy chick, hot chick matrix?
There are X and Y.
You know what I'm
axes.
talking about, Danny? Oh, yeah, Danny knows what I'm talking about.
There are X and Y axes. But anyway, your vertical is what they call a disruption pressure EPA. This is all based on expected points added, right, per play. So, in other words, what you're seeing is the pressure brought by the defense to these quarterbacks. That's actually less of the concern. What you want to look at is the bottom line, which is what the quarterback created pressure. That means the quarterback has held onto the ball for too long. Maybe they haven't let go of it yet, or they're running around trying to extend the play. We saw Bo Nix do that a lot as well. Now, Sean Payton said at the beginning of the year he thinks that Bo Nix will be a top 5 quarterback in the next 2 years in this league. Well, let's go look at that top one. And if you just go look there at the 5 that stick out right now, among that very top, Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Now, if you say that after 1 year, you don't want to put Daniels in there, that's fine. But anybody who doesn't put Allen, Jackson, Burrow, and Mahomes in the top 5 quarterbacks in the league doesn't know what they're talking about. And it shows right there. They not only handle pressure well, but they don't make pressure worse by being decisive and getting the ball out. That's where Bo Nix stands to improve. You can see he's in a group with Caleb Williams and Russell Wilson and even Jalen Hurts. Hurts obviously has something of a different skill set, but you really want to be in that upper quarter. And so everything that we're talking about really shows you where this growth should be, because what we're talking about is moving the ball downfield, even when there's pressure. That requires making the reads a little faster, throwing guys open, and that's where Nix has to go. On the bright side, there's nothing we've seen as a rookie that indicates that he can't do it. The physical skills are there. This is just about learning and experience.
That's all he needs. Learning and experience. And then the other thing that he needs, Sean, is he needs some help from his head coach. Okay. So last stat I'm going to throw out there, because other than that, my head starts to hurt when I do too many stats. Okay. The last one that I want to be able to share with you is his pace of play. All right.
Okay.
Now, pace of play, especially on the quarterback side of things, is defined as the average number of plays run per minute of an offensive possession.
In theory, how quickly you're getting the calls to your huddle,
mm-hmm.
and then if you audible at the line and getting the play off. Okay.
Bo's average pace of play in his rookie season was 2.05. That was 17th in the league.
Okay.
We talked about this before. There were some times where people were critical, saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe this has to do with because remember, we were dealing with the same problem with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't want to try to defend Russ, let's cook. But if it was a problem with Russ, and we also saw it in Bo's rookie year, we may need to find a solution here with Sean Payton to make sure that he can get the plays in faster.
And you can say what you will about the challenges with Russell Wilson, but it's not like he hadn't been a significant veteran in the league who's won a Super Bowl, who played under Pete Carroll, who doesn't exactly just, just say roll out and do things. So, I mean, that's a challenge. And Sean Payton's talked about it too, that maybe he does need to simplify his calls a little bit. But that's one of the things along with the running game. Sean Payton says he intends to do something, and actually doing it seems to be the hard part as soon as the game kicks off.
Yep. All right. Now let's get to the important thing. All right. So here is the crazy hot matrix. All right. So you notice down the left-hand side.
Okay.
That's how crazy is the lady. And then on the bottom, you see that's the level of the hotness. Okay. And you'll notice that down in the lower right-hand corner, you don't find hotness that isn't crazy.
Gotcha.
All right. That's a unicorn.
By the way,
doesn't exist.
I mean, this chart also works for guys. It's pretty much the same. It's
so
just for humans.
But you notice there's a no-go zone. All right, guys, especially some of you younger guys that are watching right now, some of you single guys, you make sure you pay attention to what we're talking about here with the crazy hot.
So what you're saying is don't get too excited about Bo Nix, because right now he's still in the
he might
the
be a little
zone.
bit. He's
in the danger zone.
He might be.
He's in the hot crazy
folks,
zone.
This is important. This is important data. All right. We might give you a ton of numbers. We might even run 1,000 Madden sims between now and the kickoff on Sunday.
Yep.
The crazy hot matrix, most valuable thing you're going to get from today's show.
For Bo Nix, that obviously has to be the first thing to work on, is get out of that matrix. Get out of that corner.
Yeah,
get
exactly.
out of that corner.
I told you we might run 1,000 Madden simulations between now and Sunday. We might even do the same thing with NCAA football 26 as well, as we get ready for CU in Delaware tomorrow. But watch parties. We got a double dip for you this weekend coming up tomorrow right here at number 38. We, of course, will have our CU Buffs watch party presented by our friends at High Noon. You stop by here at number 38. You got yourself a great spot to be able to watch the games. Remember, I told you this yesterday. If you go to the website, and this is true for the CU games as well as for Denver, if you go to their website, they have this great package that you can reserve for you and your friends that includes reserved seating. It includes food and drink. It includes, you're going to be right there, bam, with the big television right in front of you. You basically have your own spot. It's kind of like being able to enjoy the big screen at home, except you have someone bringing you food and beverage, which is just awesome. So make sure you check out their site for that if you want to. But tomorrow, 1:30, we've got our CU watch party again, presented by our friends at High Noon. And then we jump ahead to Sunday, and that's when we get ready. Sunday. We get ready for the Broncos and the Titans. That one will be at 2:05 again, right here at number 38. Our great friends Sam and Steven are going to be hosting it for us from Shut Up and Drink. We're going to be having some fun. We got prizes for you. We've got giveaways. We've got some little goofy contests that we're going to be doing. But most importantly, we're going to be surrounded by the orange and blue fans, and we're going to be cheering them on. I want to thank our friends at Breck Distilling, the official bourbon and vodka of your Denver Broncos, as well as Big Will, Kate, and the entire team at Breckenridge Brewing. That's right. We got both Brecks covered. We got Breck Distilling and Breck Brewing sponsoring our watch parties with the Broncos coming up on Sunday. There, Danny Bailey. Locked and loaded with the appropriate clothing. So tons of action and adventure, you might say, taking place here this weekend at number 38. So come join us for the Buffs if you can on Saturday. Come join us for the Broncos if you can on Sunday. And, of course, if you can, join us for both. I will be here for both. I look forward to being able to say hi to everybody, the fans of the show and the fans of Mile High Sports. Last night's game was weird, especially if you happened to be someone that included A.J. Brown on any of your player prop parlays. What the... we'll talk about tonight's NFL game and some of my favorite bets for this weekend coming up next.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients. These are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten to trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. And I am their only hope. I need to be their champion, to quote Prince Oberyn from Game of Thrones. They need someone in this trial by combat that can fight for them. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, if I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
We're still having fun with some of those
Still having
charts.
fun with the hot, crazy.
Of course, I make sure we go find some hard data of all of 2024, and Nate decides I got a chart for you.
Look, that is my role here, okay? Because Sean will always and forever be the numbers guy. It is in part due to him being an absolutely massive baseball fan, because baseball fans love metrics.
Yeah,
they do, more than any other sport. Any other sport. So you will always be a numbers guy.
You're a fantasy sports betting guy. That's all numbers.
Yeah, but it's a little different. It's a little different.
Yeah,
it's a little different.
It was different. We recommended A.J. Brown, of course, for Danny Bailey's fantasy team, and said, "Yeah, of course, go for it."
Danny asked me, and I was like, "Yeah, of course, you're going up against Dallas."
It's all right. I had Jalen Hurts too, so I didn't.
I was going to put AJ. I was going to put AJ on a milk carton at halftime.
But we talked about Jalen Hurts being in that passing area right next to Bo Nix in the previous segment.
Yep.
And, here you go. He only had 4 incomplete passes, but he also only threw for 152 yards.
Yeah.
And so, again, you're talking about a different skill set. You do not want Bo Nix running the way Jalen Hurts is running. But obviously, this first weekend of the NFL is going to be fun. Tonight, of course, you get the Chiefs and the Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is terrific for Broncos fans, because now you have an opportunity to see the two teams that you would like to hop over. The Broncos finished third behind the Chiefs and the Chargers last year, and this should be informative. Rashee Rice obviously out for the first 6 games, but the Chiefs have added some interesting talent. New starter at left tackle, that's always a concern, but I think this idea that the Chiefs are just ready to teeter and fall off a cliff is probably premature. Their defense, by the way, including some of bringing in Christian Fulton, their defense is actually pretty darn scary. It's not as if Mahomes has to put up 35 a night.
No, I'll agree with you on that one, but I also think that, I think they have had to shore up some of the stuff on defense because they have some gaps on their offensive side. I mean, it's true. They don't have Rashee Rice. There is a question as to whether or not Xavier Worthy will make a jump.
You're bound helping on Hollywood Brown to finally be kind of a regular contributor somewhere at the NFL level. I don't know.
Obviously, I'm actually a believer that this is Kelsey's last year.
I do too.
And I actually thought that even before he got engaged. So, I think he is someone that sees he sees the demand that his brother received when his brother retired. I think he sees this.
They already sold their podcast for $100 million.
I think he sees the media route that he has the ability to go. I think that basically he and his brother are right behind Peyton and Eli.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the appeal of sort of non-traditional football content. And so I think that he sees that. And I thought that even before the engagement happened. I actually thought he'd get engaged after the season, but whatever, we can move on from that. We don't have to talk about Kelsey Swift.
Yeah. It's also worth noting he might not do anything because Taylor Swift is worth, I think, last estimated by Forbes at $900 million.
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
so I don't really need to work.
As I saw on Twitter the day that they got engaged, somebody posted and said, the prenup will be the longest book that Travis Kelce has ever read.
And I apologize. I looked at last year's fortune numbers because she had the tour. She's worth 1.6 billion.
Yeah.
So
I'm kind of excited about this game tonight. I've actually got a same game parlay that we could have some fun with. You want to talk about some week 1 bets?
Yeah.
Shall
Let's
we
do
lock and load on
Let's
those
do
before we welcome in our good friend Troy Renck? So here we go. We're talking about week one. Obviously, we had last night. It was a mixed bag last night. I missed on a couple of bets. I also hit on a couple. So we basically tread water, which isn't so bad.
No.
Obviously, in betting, if you can go like up to, see our friends at Horseshoe up in Blackhawk, if you walk in with X amount of money and you walk out with the same amount of money, I consider that a win.
As long as you had some fun and took it out on the bar.
Yeah, if you took it out in a couple of
Still end up even?
draft beers.
That's a win.
All right, so let's get to the same game parlay that I've got here for you. This is actually kind of an interesting way to play it. This is even money at plus 100. I think this game is going to be relatively close. I do. And so the idea here is if by some chance the Chargers were to come out and win, and Kansas City is favored by 3.5. Okay. So what I've done is I've flipped this and basically said, hey, if Kansas City were to lose, I have a feeling it will be very close. Right? It could be a field goal game. It could be, 2 points. It could be something like that. However, I also don't believe that the Chiefs are going to blow them out of the water. And so this idea here is I'm looking for the middle. I'm looking for this to basically be decided either for the Chiefs to lose by 4 or less, or for the Chargers to lose by 8 or less. So I just need the final score to fall within that window. And I've got myself at even money at DraftKings. I built this on purpose to be able to do it at even money, because for those of you that are either new to sports betting or you're shaking off the rust because maybe you haven't been doing a whole lot since last football season, maybe you're somebody that only likes to bet on football, I wanted to remind you of these creative ways that you can do same game parlays. This is just kind of an interesting way to play it. I don't have a lot of action in the game tonight, and part of that is because whenever there are international games, if you've paid attention to me, everything from the Fantasy Football Hour to the Fade 5 with Brad to You Bet Tonight, you know that I'm not a fan of doing a lot of betting on the international games. I think the travel, I think the stadiums, the condition of the turf, there are so many things that
plus
are unknowns.
Week one where we don't know about these teams yet either.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, folks. And so be cautious with what you do. And I will say the same thing, by the way, when we get to October 12th. When the Broncos play the Jets in London, I'm going to have the same opinion. I'm probably not going to give you a whole lot of bets that week because I don't like leaning into what happens internationally. Let's fast forward now to this weekend, and I'll start off with what you guys would want me to start off with, and that is, of course, the Broncos. So let's talk about Evan Ingram. I've been all over this bet for a while now. And this number, you can shop it around. Okay. So 33.5 receiving yards for Evan Ingram. I'm all about the over on this. Here's what I can tell you. The number at DraftKings right now is 36.5. When I bet it about 2 weeks ago, actually about 10 days ago, when these lines first started to come out for week one, I took it at 34.5 at standard juice at a minus 110. Okay. BetMGM actually has it as of showtime here with Sean and I at 33.5. I'm willing to pay a little bit of juice for those yardage, but I think he is personally, I believe on Sunday, Evan Ingram is going to be north of 40 yards. The Broncos have desperately needed an offensive-minded tight end. They have needed it for a long time, and I think Sean Payton and Bo Nix are going to look to try to get Evan Ingram involved. It would not surprise me at all for Ingram to already have 20, 22, 24 yards by halftime.
Yeah, it wouldn't either. I think, Cortland Sutton is still going to be the guy getting the lion's share of the targets because his comfort level with Bo Nix. But Evan Ingram was brought in to catch a lot of passes. And in a Sean Payton offense, you go look at, the wide receiver too, where people are thinking about, well, what's Troy Franklin going to get? Look, go look at Sean Payton's offense. Does everyone get fed? Yes. But your number one wide receiver almost always leads the team in targets. And the number two is either your lead running back or your tight end. And it's flipped either or. But the wide receiver is generally the fourth. Your other wide receiver is generally the fourth guy in targets. So especially when people get really high on Marvin Mims, for example, in these early games, those are ones like, ooh, watch out, because that feels like it's going to be a limited number of targets. Could he break into a big play? He sure could. But remember, for the Broncos, especially until we see otherwise, assume that the wide receiver opposite of Sutton is not going to be the guy. He's going to be behind Ingram and one of the running backs.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. Let's talk same game parlay. I gave you one for tonight. Let's talk about one for the Broncos game on Sunday as well. I'm going to take Denver on the money line. I'm going to take the total up to 49.5. Right now it is sitting at 42.5, 43.5, depending upon where you look. I'm bumping that all the way up to 49.5. And then I just need Court to get 40 yards or more. That's it. It's plus 138. That's pretty sexy at 138.
Yeah, I
folks.
love that.
Now, if I can tell you this, I also built a second version of this just to be able to give you an example. If you do the exact same thing on the other two legs, but you take the total to 53.5 and play the under, you're at plus 104.
Ooh.
So again, you're still in positive territory, and you can get yourself 4 more points of cushion in the scoring just in case. Okay. So I throw that one out there for you in case you want to give yourself a buffer. I believe the only way the total in this game goes over 49.5, goes to 50 or more, is if the Broncos defense / special teams scores. I think that's the only way that it's going to happen, that it gets up that high. And so I'm comfortable at the 49.5 if you want the extra 34 cents worth of juice at plus 138. But like I said, if you bump this again at DK at DraftKings, if you bump it from 49.5 to 53.5, you're still looking at plus odds at a plus 104. Each of those legs makes sense to me. I don't see Denver losing this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring, in part because I think they're going to keep Cam Ward and the Titans in check. And I think Court getting 40 yards. I mean, shoot, folks, he could do that on one catch.
Yeah, that one to me is absolutely easy because we know that he gets fed.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the Broncos, I think those make a lot of sense, even in week 1.
Let's keep going. Let's go to the Battle of Ohio. That is the Bengals and the Browns that will take place on Sunday. Chase Brown, speaking of Browns, the one on the Bengals.
The Bengals can't blow game 1 to a
yes,
team
they
have
can.
no business losing to.
They
again,
absolutely can. They absolutely can.
Killed him last year.
I like this at plus odds. So Chase Brown's total yardage number, the standard line is over under 88.5. And you can get that at about minus 120, 118, depending upon what book you're looking at. Okay. But I like the idea of playing this up to the plus odds. I think he is going to be leaned on very heavily by this team. So I'm looking at him to get past the century mark when it comes to his rushing and his receiving yards combined. And if he does that over at DraftKings, you can get that at a plus 108. That is the total there. But again, if you just want to play the standard line, you can. That number is all the way down at 88.5. Why do I like this? One, we know that Joe Burrow is going to spread the ball around. He's got Higgins. He's got Chase. He's got plenty of guys he can get the ball to, but he's also got Chase Brown that he can dump the ball off to if he wants to from a receiving out of the backfield standpoint. However, I also believe that Chase Brown's going to get a sizable amount of this on the ground because I think Cincinnati knows that they cannot put all of the weight offensively on Joe Burrow's shoulders. They need Joe Cool to get a break every now and then, and the best way to do that is to hand the ball off to Chase Brown. He's a talented running back, and I think he'll be able to take care of business. Finally, I give you my 3 best. These are just my wide receiver picks, or running back picks, excuse me. I'll put some wide receiver picks up on the spreadsheet, which you can find on X at Nate Lundy. But my favorite touchdown scorers for this weekend, the aforementioned Chase Brown. I like Ashton Genty to find the end zone for the Raiders. I think they want to establish their rookie and establish him early. And then if you're looking for a plus odds opportunity, talk about Tank Bigsby of your Jacksonville Jaguars. He is actually a plus 180 to splash 6 this weekend. I don't know exactly what all to expect out of Jacksonville, but I do think that Tank Bigsby is a hidden gem. I believe it from a DFS and a fantasy perspective, and I also think if they're going to give me those kind of plus odds for an anytime touchdown, I think he's the kind of guy that if Jacksonville can get down and get inside the 10-yard line, I think they have the opportunity to hand him the ball and try to get some rushing touchdowns out of this Jags offense. So from a running back standpoint, those are my 3 favorite anytime touchdown scorers.
Yeah, and anytime I'm doing anytime touchdown scores, I'm always picking running backs. I mean, the wide receiver part is still more dependent.
Most
on
common
situation.
for me is running backs. Second most
or
common.
You're going Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts.
I had a bet last night
runners.
on. I had a bet last night on Jalen. I had a bet last night on Saquon. And then the other thing that I tend to look at is the tight ends, Sean, that I know are end zone vultures, right? Those guys that go in there and
Kelsey, Mark Jackson.
and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is one of those guys.
Mark Jackson also in the end zone a long time ago.
Sam Laporta of Detroit, guys like that I think can find the end zone from a tight end perspective. So anyway, some favorite bets. Again, if you follow me on X at Nate Lundy, the spreadsheet is posted up there. You can also find it on Brad's site, thegamingjuice.com. So if you go to thegamingjuice.com, his spreadsheet is on there. My spreadsheet is on there. Again, you do not pay a dime for it. Brad and I are completely transparent with our picks. We put them up. We let you know what book we found the odds at. You know, if it is on the spreadsheet, folks, it is a bet that I actually made with my money. So we're as transparent as we can be. Brad does the same thing. So go check it out at thegamingjuice.com.
Obviously, go check all those things. That is terrific, terrific content if you're into the betting world. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Broncos game with the Titans with our friend Troy Renck in a moment. But I want to remind you in Colorado, hey, look, it's getting into September, which means if you're thinking about going out playing golf, it's one of the best seasons all year long to go play. It's not quite as humid. It's not quite as hot, but it's still gorgeous outside in Colorado. So check out Denver Golf. 8 unique and distinctive courses, obviously giving you urban and mountain settings, everything in between. They have outstanding course conditions. So many of these courses have been sort of refurbished and renewed, and they're still at affordable prices, which try to find that at golf nowadays. It's tough, but you can find it at Denver Golf. They're scattered throughout the metro area. So no matter where you are, there's certainly one conveniently located near you. And with professional and friendly customer service, everyone, all skill levels, everybody is welcome at all of Denver's courses. So book your tee time today at cityofdenvergolf.com. That's cityofdenvergolf.com. Come home to play. Denver Golf is your neighborhood course.
I told him I'd only go there with him. I knew it was a lie as soon as I said it.
We like to watch.
My parents don't understand.
I'm definitely a screamer. It used to be just me and her.
But more people makes it more fun.
Football at Hooters. All the games, all season. Crazy good wings, ice cold beer, and the best fans on the planet. Hooters.
Of course, you want to talk about the Denver Broncos. You want to talk to Troy Renck of the Denver Post, the host of the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck as well. So proud to have that as part of the Mile High Sports family. Troy, thanks for joining us. Here we are with the Broncos just a couple days away from the season opener. And obviously everything still looks promising for the Broncos, especially in this game. But there are concerns. We know that Dre Greenlaw has basically not been on the field a lot. They've talked about pitch counts. Malcolm Roach now with a grade 2 calf sprain. The usual recovery time for that can be 4 to 6 weeks. Roach, obviously a major contributor on the line, is a guy that rotates in behind the starters in John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen and DJ Jones. But when you look at these two injuries together, if both of these guys miss any time, the reality is the Denver Broncos defense, as they wrote it out on paper, can't do what everyone was hoping it would do.
Yeah, I mean, they won't be the best defense in football if they lose Greenlaw for a significant portion of the season. Roach is a glue guy. He makes pieces fit, and so he has more of an impact almost even off the field than on it at times because of his energy and the way he practices. Greenlaw and Roach have both been ruled out, as you mentioned. And we're probably not going to see Roach the first month of the season, and that could show up against the Chargers. That could show up against the Bengals. I'm curious to see if we see Greenlaw against the Chargers and Bengals. I'm not holding out much hope that we're going to see him next week because he didn't practice at all this week. I mean, he's just not – I'm not saying he's not getting better, but in terms of visually being at practice, we're not seeing the progress. In the locker room after today, he talked about, he just wasn't going to talk about the situation. I don't think it was out of frustration as much as he just wasn't going to comment about it. But it's a concern. I mean, this quad injury happened over the summer.
Yeah.
And here we are, September 7th, or right on the eve of September 7th, and it's still an issue. And now it was a setback in there. It wasn't necessarily the same injury, but that's a long time to be dealing with this. And as I wrote a few weeks ago, my concern with Greenlaw is how do you keep him healthy when he plays at one speed? And he's got this quad issue. So they can't be the best defense in football without those two. But if you need one back sooner rather than later, you would want Greenlaw back against both the Chargers and Bengals because of his ability in coverage and because of his ability to just absolutely hurt people in the run game.
Yeah, I brought up the same thing for the Broncos defense. Obviously, you have the reigning defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain. That there's a lot to like about the talent. You had a Talanoa Hufanga. But at the same time, for the Broncos defense to look different than it did last year. And obviously it was outstanding last year. But for it to really look like a different unit, in many ways, it feels like it's all on Greenlaw because Greenlaw brings a totally unique set of skills that at the moment, none of the Denver Broncos players at that position have. We know that Alex Singleton is coming back to health, but he's never been a guy that does that. He hoovers up the tackles in the ground game, but he's not a coverage guy. Justin Sternad can do a little of that, but he's certainly not Dre Greenlaw's level, who arguably is the best inside linebacker and tight end coverage in the league when healthy. And the Broncos had earmarked Drew Sanders for that role, but he, of course, has been dealing with injuries over the course of his career since he was drafted. knowing that Greenlaw missed OTAs with this quad injury, and then a quote from his agent, Jarrett Carroll, to the Denver Post earlier this week. And I know you saw it. He said, to be real honest, Dre's always going to want to go as hard and fast as he can go. That's Dre's mentality. And a little bit of it, too, is he's just missed the game so much. So there was a lot of, I think, holding back by the Broncos to keep him reined in so he didn't re-injure himself, end quote. We know that Sean Payton's kind of alluded to pitch counts. But the question I guess I would have is, do we know how hurt Dre Greenlaw really is? How much of this is Greenlaw's injury, and how much is this just a really conservative approach by the Broncos to manage his health?
I mean, if I had to guess, my knowledge of the NFL, it's a little of both. You know, if the player doesn't come out and speak about it and say, hey, I'm healthy, I should be out there, then he's likely dealing with an injury, and Greenlaw has not done that. Obviously, I was told that he could have played in the second preseason game and the third preseason game. So whether he had another setback in there or as he ramped up, they saw something and were like, hey, we got to, soft pedal this a little bit because you don't look right. And we're afraid you're going to, blow it out and be out for 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So, Sean, you speak about him like he's Liam Neeson and Taken. He's got a specific set of skills that's so different from the rest of these guys. And it's true. But listen, this is the gamble they made. Sean Payton deserves a lot of praise for changing the culture, getting his guys in here. But we've said an entire offseason, every guy they brought in to address a need had an injury concern. From J.K. Dobbins to Evan Ingram to Talanoa Hufanga to Dre Greenlaw. Greenlaw is now missing time. He's going to miss this week. Probably, if I had to guess, he'll miss next week. And they need 3 of these 4 to be healthy. And I said all along, you need 2 of them on offense and 1 on defense. But Greenlaw hurts. There's just no way around it. It hurts. And we don't even know what it's going to look like. Here's my biggest concern, Sean. We keep talking about Greenlaw in terms of who he was. Who is he now? I don't know. I know everybody I trust in the game and what they tell me about him. I know what I see on YouTube highlights. I know what I remember from watching San Francisco games. We haven't seen that player in a long, long time. So that's my concern is who is Dre Greenlaw now? And if he's that player we know, can he be that player over the aggregate of a season? I don't think any of us know that answer.
Yeah, and it almost feels inevitable that even if he does end up playing for the Broncos and playing a significant role, that everyone, it seems like the vibe out of Dove Valley is that he's going to get hurt. The question is when and how badly, and We're trying to minimize that. And I guess it could be fair then to maybe, if that's really the case, if that's the feeling, maybe it's a little fair to question, the signing in that regard, because you're looking at, as you pointed out, they all had the injury backgrounds. The year prior to that, Brandon Jones, a really talented safety that again had an injury history. That's kind of the nature of free agency, right? If superstar players are guys that could really be Pro Bowl level game-changing guys are out in the free agency, that's usually because there's a reason, whether it wasn't a fit for the team they had, but if that's the case, they probably wouldn't be Pro Bowlers. And the injuries are real risks. And I get it. The Broncos feel that they have a really good staff that can manage these things, but it's not magic. Football's still violent. Guys get hurt. And still the greatest predictor of injuries is the fact that you've had one previously. And the Broncos do have a lot of those risks, especially on defense.
Yeah, and it's fascinating about that is Sean Payton puts so much confidence in Bo Lowry, his health and performance guru, and it's paid dividends these last 2 years. But
it has.
Very few guys, though, had the injury risk. Like they got rid of Greg Dulcich. Like some of the guys that were getting hurt, they just got rid of them. And then they brought in guys who were hurt. And when I've talked to people privately, sources behind the scenes, they're like, well, yes, we did. But, in Dobbins' case, we have Harvey as this kind of the safety net and Beatty or Bidet. And then when you look at Greenlaw, we've got Justin Strnad. And when you look at how Talanoa Hufanga, we've got P.J. Locke. And they don't really have an answer for Ingram, no matter what they tell me. But again, you're upgrading in a way that's unusual. That's like, these guys could all be great, but if they're not, we have our old team. Well, again, your old team is not going to be a team capable of reaching the Super Bowl. And that's my issue is like Sean Payton framed the season this way. I love it. I love everything about it. But when you frame the season that way as a coach, then you set yourself up for criticism if these guys get hurt, because there was no secret, as you mentioned, Sean, the injury history is there. And I'm with you. Typically players as they age, not necessarily young players, but as they age, don't get healthier. That's why my concern with Greenlaw, it's starting to linger, and I hope I'm wrong, But this is what spoiled the Niners, kind of the last year and a half. Bunch of guys started getting old, taking on water, and and Christian McCaffrey's hurt again. I mean, they get hurt. That's what happens to older football players. They get hurt, they miss a little more time than the young guy, and they're not necessarily the same player than when they return. So it's, Sean Payton set himself up for this. In a lot of cases these last 2 years, he's been right. He's had the final word. He's been right. But in this case, it is going to be fascinating to see, 6-8 weeks into the season, was he right or not?
Yeah, and I'm not placing any blame. I'm just observing here. But obviously, you talk about the Broncos and their staff behind Bo Lowry. But you talked about the challenges the Niners have had over the last years. They've been significant. You sign guys from the Niners who have been having this problem. So, that's something you have to be cognizant of. In this game on Sunday, Troy, we still feel like the Broncos are obviously going to have a tremendous opportunity. They're good at home. They were good at season openers, and Tennessee had the first pick in the draft. But last year, a team had absolutely had their eyes set on the playoffs. Most people assumed are absolutely going to make the playoffs. The Cincinnati Bengals had a game at home, and they lost to rookie Drake May and the New England Patriots. How do the Broncos avoid the same fate?
I mean, you just pressure Cam Ward. You make him miserable, because even if you have an off night offensively, you should be able to win this game by double digits. I think we talked about this stat, but if we hadn't, I'm going to reintroduce it. Number 1 overall picks starting the first game of a season in the NFL, quarterbacks are 4-14-1. 4-14-1. That's going to be 4-15-1. Cam Ward's going to walk away and say, the AFC is a lot harder than the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, how do they do this? You make him miserable. You disguise stuff. You don't, get man coverage and turn your back and let him run around and make plays. You confuse him. You blitz him. You just do anything and everything to make him uncomfortable. And as much as I like the talent, then that should lead to a couple of picks. You throw a fumble in there, and then you win, even if it's clunky offensively. But I believe they're going to win somewhere, 27-10, somewhere along those lines. And if it's a close game, it's the first game. It's not reason to panic, but I do think optics matter in a game like this. Sean Payton has said, it's home. You got to go out and set this tone of domination, that this is not an easy place to play. Last thing you want to do is win some 18-17 walk-off game against the Titans. Like, come on.
Yeah, Ward was asked about the way that, of course, the Broncos led the league in sacks last year. Was asked earlier this week about preparing for the Broncos, and his response was, quote, "Don't let him kill you." I mean, that's really all you can do to handle pressure, no matter what blitz you call. The blitz still got to get there. Now he's right, and I agree with everything you said. I just try to look at, how could things go a little sideways, and I guess he is not Lamar Jackson, obviously, but the idea when the Broncos played the Ravens last year was, okay, don't let Lamar beat you with his feet. He didn't. But because the Broncos made sure they invested in that, Lamar diced them up with his arm. Now, Cam Ward, again, is not Lamar Jackson. Who knows what he'll be, but not today for sure. But that's the one thing that I look at. I think the Broncos have to avoid a little bit of overconfidence because, yeah, you can pen this guy in, but he is a superb athlete, and he has a monster throwing arm. He was effective with the deep ball. It's strong and it's accurate. And so those are the kind of things that if you let up for just one play, all of a sudden, Ward might be able to keep you in the game. So for the Broncos defense, especially missing some players, they have a little more. It's not a major test when you're talking about, say, the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bills. But what it is it's a test of their ability to keep your concentration and focus all 60 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and again, that's part of the issue that Vance Joseph's talked about in terms of what is the next step of this defense. It's to eliminate the gash plays, because they're really good. But every once in a while, we saw it even against San Francisco. Jaquan McMillan gives up like a 50-yard pass. Like, those are the kind of plays that keep a young team in it and give a young team confidence they normally wouldn't have. I do believe the only way Denver could be in this game and even lose it would be with turnovers on their end. If they turned the ball over 2 or 3 times, created a short field. But you're right. When it comes to the defense, it's eliminating that big play, especially on, 3rd and 14 and, that 25-yard interference call. Like, those are the plays that extend drives and lead to points. So we'll need to watch and keep an eye on that, because that's something Vance Joseph singled out specifically. Like, they do so many things well, but if they want to improve in one specific area, it's that. Like, these chunk plays, they've got to be a little lower in number on the chunk plays.
We're still about 46 hours from kickoff for the Broncos as they take on the Titans to start the 2025 season. And maybe you're thinking about a little more Broncos content. Well, Troy's got that for you. You mentioned the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. What's the latest on the pod that people can grab and learn a little bit more and a little more in depth about the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I was able to talk at length with Parker Gabriel early in the week, so that's up there. And then my latest pod, it has some sound from Bo Nix and Pat Surtain on what it means for Peyton to stick his chest out and believe in this team the way he has. How has that affected the locker room? And then Kurt Warner, I talked at length and I wrote a column with talking to Kurt about what are the weaknesses of this team that, keep him from viewing them as a Super Bowl contender. And it's very similar to what we've talked about. Offensively, he does not view them as a Super Bowl contender yet. So can they get Ingram involved or can they run? And let me just say one thing real quick, and it's not part of the pod. I like Javonte Williams. I've never said I don't. I love the story. Yeah. This idea, Broncos country, you're going to miss Javonte Williams. Like, come on. And I'm happy for him. I am. He had 3.6 yards a carry on 15 carries. His average in his last 2 years with the Broncos, 3.6 yards per carry. They had to do something else. I had people on my Twitter feed last night, Sean, telling me he wasn't given an opportunity.
Right.
Hello? What are you talking about? 2 years. I get he's hurt. Like, this is the third year back from ACL is your best year. This is the NFL, folks. This isn't high school. Like, come on now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that was a little bit silly. People go, early overreactions, same thing. He has 2 touchdowns. Okay, I'm not discounting that, but they were each 1 yard. And if you look at the running back room for the Dallas Cowboys, they don't even know what they've got. And you're right, it wasn't particularly effective. And I hope, I've said the same thing as you. I hope Javonte Williams has a great year. I hope he does. I like the player. I like the story. I like everything about it. But let's not go crazy here. What you saw last night was a little bit of what you've seen from Javonte Williams. He sort of gets some yards on the ground a little bit. The explosiveness does not seem to be back. We'll see if it ever comes back. And even some of the strength has not come back after the knee injury. Because remember, everybody, you have 4 CLs in your knee. He tore 3 of them, not just the ACL. That's important to note, too. And the reason the Broncos moved on from basically that top part of their running room is they knew they needed more. And I guess the last one for you then here, Troy, about that, the running game for the Broncos. What I am fascinated about this game on Sunday more than anything, I want to see what shape the Broncos running game takes and how efficient and effective it will be.
And who's getting the most carries? Is it Dobbins? We didn't see him. Is it Dobbins? Is it, RJ Harvey? My guess is it's Dobbins gets 13 to 16. Harvey gets somewhere around 8 to 10. But they got to commit to it. If you're going to be a good running team, you have to commit to it. And can you get some good outside zone run plays to get those 10-yard plus runs that they did not have last year?
Yeah, we'll find out what happens on Sunday for sure. Check out the latest podcast, the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck and everybody. Talking about Parker Gabriel, Luca Evans, that's crushing it over there at the Denver Post, and our friend Sean Keeler as well, covering the Broncos. Can't do any better. So, Troy, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much, and enjoy the football. It's back.
You got it, Sean. Take care.
Thanks so much. We'll have an opportunity to go to the high school ranks and talk with our friend Dan Mohrmann at Colorado Preps. I want to remind you, of course, we're broadcasting live from the new Mile High Sports studio at number 38 in Rhino, presented by our friends at Volo, right behind me there. And Volo's mission is to create fulfilling opportunities by fostering genuine communities with their access to sports. You basically name a rec sport and you can play it at Volo. Our producer, Danny Bailey's playing volleyball with Volo. I'm looking at a couple things as well. And who knows? I'm not athletic anymore. I might look at, hand in cup kickball. That's the thing. You can go into flip cup. The idea is go out there, compete, have fun, meet new friends, make new friends. So even if you're bringing a whole team or if it's just bringing you, it's a great opportunity to get out there, be athletic, and build some of those communities. And the beauty of what Volo is doing, not only bringing people together, but as more people sign up to play in Volo's adult leagues, they fund more youth programs through the Volo Kids Foundation. The Volo Kids Foundation over the last 7 years has provided more than 11,000 children with free quality youth sports and activities. Free. So when you're signing up, you're helping promote that for kids in your area. So bring your friends or make new ones at volosports.com for all the latest opportunity to play, to compete, and help kids in your community. That's volosports.com, where we play so kids can play free. We mentioned earlier, it is a football Friday. There's been other football Fridays. Of course, we pointed out college sports started. High school sports have started as well. And, of course, the NFL really gets going this week. So thanks to the patience by Dan Mohrmann there as we're getting through a lot of stuff today and waiting to join us a bit. So sorry for keeping you there, Dan. But the editor-in-chief of ColoradoPreps.com, the high school football season is in swing. And there's some interesting starts. You brought it up when we were talking about the show earlier today. Columbine off to a potentially bad start, and not only potentially bad start, but a potentially historically bad start.
Yeah, and this is one that I had to go back and look at after last week. I couldn't tell you. I think it was 2014 was maybe the last time that they lost a week 1 matchup to an in-state team. So that's, 11 years ago. In the Max Preps era, which dates back to 2004, where you can look at full schedules, wins, losses, I couldn't find a year that Columbine started 0-3, and they are in danger of that tonight as they take on legend and a very, very dangerous DJ Bordeaux at quarterback.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Obviously, this is a team that was in the championship game of late, and then to have that kind of fall off the map. What's
they weren't in the championship game? They won the state championship game.
Yeah. And so what's been the challenge there? Obviously, there's turnover every single year, but has there been anything in particular that's kind of led to this bad start?
I haven't seen Columbine yet, so I can't speak too much on it. Doug Ottewell has a little more insight, and he says that they may not have the size that you would traditionally see from a Columbine offensive line. They're still running the ball very well, but when you don't have the size that can really get the push offensively and defensively that this team has notoriously had, it's going to lead to some slow starts. Last week, everyone's pointing out that that the loss to Thunder Ridge may have been a bad loss. I don't necessarily think that's the case. Thunder Ridge is under head coach Jay Madden, who is a state championship winning coach, brings instant credibility and pedigree to any program that he's with. So I thought that was, and really it was a close. It was 26-6 was the final. And Thunder Ridge got off to a hot start. So once Columbine settled in, they were competitive through the course of the game. They just couldn't put up points. So I don't know how that's going to fare tonight. If they get down early against this DJ Bordeaux-led Legend Titans team, that may put them off schedule, and that's typically not a good way for Columbine to play football when they have that ground game that they do, and that's really what they rely on to stay competitive.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to go into an 0-3 hole. I mean, obviously,
not in this 5A landscape right now.
Capable of digging out of it, you would have to say, given recent history, yeah, but that's still a very, very big ask to ask a team that starts 0-3 to climb themselves back into contention.
Well, right, and when you're looking at this top tier of 5A football right now, I mean, Cherry Creek is in a class by itself. Right. I saw their 0-week win against Regis, and that's a lot of work for every team in the state to have to catch up to the Bruins. Dave Logan might have the best team that he's had since he took over at Cherry Creek in 2012. So that's saying a lot. Valor Christian is very much on the rise with new head coach Mike Sanford. You can catch a great interview with him, by the way, in the new issue of Mile High Sports Magazine. Great job by whoever did that interview. And
spring your shoulder, pat yourself.
Yeah. I'm a little sore from patting myself on the back for this issue. Me and Doug and you. Legend is right up there, and freaking our friend Jermaine Stafford down at Upswing, who sponsors the Colorado Prep Show that airs every Tuesday on the Mile High Sports YouTube page. Jermaine texted me last night because we're sitting there watching this. He might have been at the game, but I'm watching the score from Mountain Vista and Erie. Mountain Vista is a team that looks like it left something on the table, and that's saying a lot considering that they lost the state's all-time leading touchdown thrower in Austin Majeski last year, quarterback. So Mountain Vista, Legend, Valor Christian, Cherry Creek, if you're looking at those top 4 teams in the 5A landscape, and you can't forget about Ralston Valley, who's coming off a big win over Grandview last night. I mean, the top end of 5A is absolutely loaded. So Columbine cannot afford an 0-3 start. They cannot afford to get behind the 8 ball too much. It's going to be a lot of work to catch up to to that top tier grouping.
Obviously, one of the more interesting games tonight to pay attention to for all of that, but there are other ones, and you highlighted. Let's look at A West and Fairview.
Oh, yeah, and this is going to be a true test for Fairview quarterback. Our friend Brent New on the Colorado Prep Show on Tuesday corrected us. We think it's Key Ellison, not Kai. I only need to know how to spell it, Sean. I'm a trained writer, so I don't do pronunciation so well. But Key he stepped in as a freshman last year at Fairview. He looks to be another one in a great line of quarterbacks to play for Tom McCartney there for the Knights. He had a solid freshman year, got them to the playoffs, had a stunning win over Mountain Vista in, I want to say it was the quarterfinals last year. And he's looked good so far in his sophomore campaign. So this is going to be the first real big test for him. Arvada West is another talented Jeffco area team. They opened with a good win over Fountain Fort Carson. I believe that was in week 0. They've looked solid, in the early goings this year. So it's going to be a really good test for Fairview to see how they're going to fare against what is traditionally a good A West team.
Yeah, and as you get ready, if you're just kind of ramping up into the high school season, Dan mentioned the new Miley Sports magazine. Of course, we saw it on the desk, get the Patrick Stan cover and the Bo Nix cover, but the same. But yeah, when we talk about the football issue, we mean football. We're talking about the Broncos. We're talking about every college team in the area, and we're talking about prep sports in partnership with our friends at Dan and Colorado Preps. And just to show you a little bit, you talked about Jermaine, you talked about Upswing, had an opportunity to get this terrific way to highlight and feature some of the best athletes in the state right here at Upswing and get their photos and get their little.
There's a lot of Division I commits on that spread there, Sean.
It's a lot. And so make sure you check it out when you get a chance to pick this up anywhere. Of course, where we're at number 38, we had everywhere, but you'll find it Hooters all across the Front Range and wherever you really be able to find any of your magazines, you'll find it. But remember, we have all of the looks at the prep setups as well. And so one of the things that we decided we want to talk about that I admit I'm a local kid. I didn't play football because I am small and would get killed and couldn't place kick or punt. So no use for me. But there are a lot of traditions in high school football. And one of them we're going to see tonight, Arapahoe and Heritage for the milk jug. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I would love to hear, because there are some of these trophies, some of these high school traditions that you might be familiar with. And I'm interested in a little more of them too.
Well, I mean, it's kind of takes the cue from college, right? We're so aware of some of those college rivalry traveling trophies. I mean, the Centennial Trophy between CU and CSU, which is going to stay in Boulder until that rivalry gets renewed. The boot, of course, with CSU and Wyoming. Commander in Chiefs Trophy, which is a three-way deal. And high schools have them too, and a lot of them are so much fun. I mean, Smoky Hill, this was maybe one of my favorite stories from last week. Smoky Hill went 0-10 last year, Sean, and they think they scored 36 points all season. And they end up beating it's off the top. They end up winning their rivalry game to win back the wagon wheel. They beat Overland.
Okay.
And I think it was a 56-0 game. So they outscored their entire season last year, and they won their rivalry traveling trophy in week 1. Like, is there not a better rebound story to a start of the year than something like that? In the coming weeks, we're going to get some of the best traveling trophy rivalry games going. A week from tonight is the Cannon game down in Pueblo. You want to talk about the best traveling trophies? How about a Civil War era cannon that you paint either black or yellow? If you're Pueblo South, you win it. That thing's getting painted black. Pueblo East wins it. It's getting painted gold. That thing, it's one of my favorite deals. A friend of mine, Matt Pritchard, he used to work at Channel 5 down here in Colorado Springs. The year that Pueblo South ended up winning the state championship, I was covering a game and standing right next to a cannon on a touchdown. Wasn't thinking about it. It booms. I jump. And Matt, being the good friend that he is, had it on camera and decided to make a GIF of it. So I've got a GIF of me being startled by this cannon. And then, of course, the other one you have to talk about in terms of Pueblo is the bell game between Pueblo Central and Pueblo Centennial. The bell that they win, again, you either paint it red or blue, depending on who wins. But there's so much pride around those trophies in every single trophy. So the milk jug this week, Littleton Public Schools, big rivalry game. Arapahoe probably a little irritated over their week 1 loss to Mountain Vista. I can't imagine that they don't want to come out, start strong, and they're the holders of that milk jug. They have no intention of letting that thing go. And Heritage is a very good 4A team. You want to talk about the top end of the 5A deal like we did a few minutes ago. Heritage is kind of right in that cusp in the 4A landscape.
I love that is kind of trickled down to high schools because like you talked about. I know that I went to Ponderosa High School out of Parker, and that's when there were only 2 and then the 3 high schools in Douglas County, and now it's like, I don't know, 11, whatever it is. But back then, I always felt the same way. No matter what our sport was, it'd be great if we had a really great season. But as long as we beat Douglas County, I was sort of okay with how it went. That was just how it kind of felt, right? Because you have those rivals. There weren't any trophies at the time, but it does give the student body and fans a little bit that, hey, okay, what, the year didn't go the way we wanted, but that team that we want to get over, yeah, we got that. I absolutely love that that's come down to high school sports.
And I really love it when it's not like a forced deal. And I'll even speak for myself here. So Manitou Springs St. Mary's used to be a huge football rivalry. They had what they called the Pikes Peak Trophy, and it was just a helmet. One half was painted St. Mary's green, the other half was painted Manitou gold, and it's fine and it's something to play for, but that's not something nearly as neat as a freaking wagon wheel or a milk jug. Like a milk jug sounds, it sounds funny in a way, but you can't sit there and tell me that going around both of those school buildings today that you have people that their day will be made if their team comes away with that piece of hardware. Yeah. And that's just what I love. Like, there's so much pride, there's history, there's all that. I mean, if you've ever, I highly recommend you get to a Bell game. Bell game is probably my favorite high school experience. And I've been there when it's changed hands, and I've been there when it's retained, and that place goes absolutely crazy. 15,000 fans in Dutch Clark Stadium. Sign me up.
Obviously, it gets going tonight with the Preps sport, and of course, you want to check out the Colorado Preps scoreboard show, which you can find over on our friends at Altitude 92.5. That'll be going live this evening. So happy to be part of that as well. We kind of put that together with our friends over at Altitude. And you talked about the show here on YouTube that you do with Jermaine and you do with Doug Ottawell. Relatively new. If people haven't had a chance to see it, you are missing out on a wealth of information in high school sports. You can sit down and watch one of these, and you are as up to date as anybody in the state. So, what's the latest for people who might want to jump in?
Well, you can catch it we air every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, pending Danny Bailey's approval.
Always.
I refer to the boss.
It works that way here too. I get it.
Yeah. When Danny tells me it airs, that's when it airs. So, I've really enjoyed it so far. It's kind of the seed for, hopefully a couple of bigger projects that we have coming down the pipe in the future. But yeah, it's a couple of guys, and we bring in a rotating cast. We had on Brent New from Boco Preps this week. My friend Jessica Mendoza from KKTV down here in Colorado Springs. James Noakes, one of our staff writers or staff freelancers for Colorado Preps. I imagine that we'll get Ashley Moore from 9 News, and I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Schubert and Kyle Newman from the Denver Post. I mean, we just got done talking with Troy, who made some crack about this isn't high school football when people are recovering from ACLs. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, Troy, but I'll deal with you later. But we're going to have a great cast. We're going to have some knowledgeable people talking about kids, their performances, results, obviously, and then we'll get into some things like Monday or next week. I think we'll get into a little bit of the private school enrollment multiplier that's coming into vote in less than 2 weeks. I know a lot of people are getting worked up about it. I was on a call earlier with some private school administrators, and I have a feeling that's going to be a hot topic.
Explain just what that is, because obviously, when you're talking about private schools, the opportunity to offer scholarships means that you are not bound to your geographic area like a lot of the public schools are.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't know how many of them actually offer scholarships, but you're not bound to your geographic area. Right. And Colorado's an open enroll state, so no one's really bound by their geographical area. But the amendment that's been put forward is deemed schools that are deemed non-public by the Colorado Department of Education will be hit with a 1.5 multiplier to their enrollment number, and then they'll be placed into the classification based on that multiplier. So there's a little nugget about whether or not you qualify, win a playoff game in a given cycle. You could be exempt from that multiplier under certain circumstances, but a lot of people are not thrilled with the language of it. A lot of people aren't thrilled with the fact that the original amendment had charter schools involved, and then those got taken out. So there's a lot of discourse, I would say, amongst the voting membership right now, and the vote will take place in a special session of the Legislative Council on the 16th. I'll have as much information as I possibly can about that. I'll be watching those proceedings live, and I don't know. There's a lot of people unhappy for a lot of reasons, but I'm very curious to see the direction in which this goes.
So check out the new Colorado Prep Show, of course, right here on this YouTube channel. So easy enough to get to. Should be right below this when you're done. Just go ahead and find that. Check it out. Of course, grab the new Mile High Sports magazine with all of the high school features there, including the great capsules with so many of the state's top football players presented by our friends at Upswing. And then make sure you grab, not only go to coloradopreps.com, but grab that app driven by our friends at Ford. Get the scoreboard basically happening in near real time all across the state. When you're talking about high school sports, nobody covers high school sports like Dan Mohrmann and the team at Colorado Preps. So happy to be involved with it over here at Mile High Sports as well. And the season's going. So I imagine you have places to go and games to see.
I'm going to try and stick close to home tonight. We've got Akron, the number 2 team in 8-man, according to the Colorado Preps polls. They're just right up the road playing St. Mary's at the Grace Center. So I'm going to stick close to home, go watch a little bit of that, see what the top teams are looking like in 8-man, and then I'll get back here and help out our friend Kevin Schaefer, run down scores, and make sure that everyone's staying as up to date as they can as to what's going on throughout the entire state of Colorado.
Yeah, so make sure you tune in tonight, Altitude Sports Radio 92.5 for the Colorado Scoreboard Show for all the latest as well with Dan and Kevin. So, Dan, obviously busy night. Always so nice to have you set the stage for us for a big night of football. Thanks so much for the time.
Sean, I can't wait until we do this next week. Next week's Cannon Game week, so we'll have a lot to talk about on that one.
Can't wait. All right. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Dan Mohrmann, editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps. Go to coloradopreps.com or grab that app. Have it all in your pocket, driven by our friends at Ford. Then you'll get everything. That's how I monitor it when I'm doing something else. I make sure I grab the app and I can look in real time and check out what's happening in all the games and all the levels across the state, as you saw right there. Dan's going to cover 8-man tonight. So, if it's high school football, we got it at Colorado Preps. Make sure you check out the new show right here on the YouTube channel. So that'll do it for us on a Football Friday. Nothing to do but let the games go. The Chiefs and the Chargers get it going in Brazil tonight. The Chiefs, if they beat the Chargers, will tie an NFL record for the most consecutive wins over a single opponent. They have beaten the Chargers 11 times. 12 is the record, done twice before. We'll find out what that means for tonight for the two biggest rivals for the Denver Broncos in the AFC West. So a little bit of scouting for you Broncos fans tonight as well. Of course, a full high school slate. Talked about how to pay all attention to that. And while you're waiting for the Broncos to start, grab that latest Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. Get that wherever you have your podcasts or right here on this YouTube channel. So thanks to Troy Renck for joining us. Thanks to Dan Mohrmann for joining us. Nate Lundy broke that game down with the Broncos and the Titans and gave his best bets. And Danny Bailey is the man in the booth that makes all of it work, but we do it for you. It's your show as well. Appreciate all the comments, all the feedback. You're right. It was Jacoby Brissett, not Drake May in week 1, but you can still get snuck up on a little bit as well for the Broncos. It will be fascinating to see how this happens this weekend. And we're looking forward to getting back and talk to you about all of it when we get back on Monday. So have a safe and a happy weekend. Enjoy the football. We'll be right back here to break it all down with you on Monday for everyone at Mile High Sports and at Colorado Preps. I'm Sean Drotar. This is Mile High Sports Today.